Jose, thank you for doing this.
Thank you, Michael.
It's been almost 2 years going on that you've been the CEO of Hyundai. How have things been going over the past 2 years?
I can tell you that they have been the two most exciting years of my entire life and career. So a lot of things happening, both in the company and outside the company. So as you know, for us, USA is the most important market in the world, besides Korea, which is our headquarters. And then we've seen the last couple of years, tariffs on imported vehicles. We've seen a removal of IRA. We've seen the continuation of the Ukraine war. We've seen a new war in Iran, which is a very important region for us. And then we've seen also some elements inside the industry and the company. So, but the good thing is that as we have been presenting at the CEO Investor Day and the multiple interactions with media, so we've been focused on delivering on our commitment. And unlike other competitors that have changed dramatically their plans, 2 years ago we presented, for example, the Neolum concept. We've been able to stay the course and then deliver this outstanding vehicle.
And now you mentioned people changing their plans and the CEO Investor Day. That was bold 2030 is the plan, correct? I mean, bold is in the name of it. Ambitious, I would say as well. But are you where you want to be with that plan right now?
We are well ahead of our plan, which has been supported by taking breakthrough actions over and above the standard original plan. So we didn't know we had to have negotiations between the USA and South Korea regarding the tariffs, and then we've tried to make the most out of it and take every challenge as an opportunity as part of the culture of the founding person of the group, Joo Jun Chung, right? And then we have committed not only to stay the course, but to increase our investment in the country with additional $26 billion over the next 4 years, which come on top of the already $20.5 billion that we have invested over the last 40 years. So all in all, I think we are trying to even accelerate also some of the actions that we were already doing, like we didn't know that the tariff things would be announced, and then actually the same day that we announced the grand opening of our plant in Savannah, Georgia, we had the Liberation Day and the tariffs were announced, so we accelerated even more the localization, and then we're very proud to be directly and indirectly having in America about 570,000 employees and about to add an extra 25,000. So in a couple of weeks I'm going to be in Louisiana in the grand opening of our steel factory, which is another step of our commitment to localization and to the US market.
And now you mentioned the US market a lot. Hyundai has grown exponentially in the US this decade. That includes Kia, Genesis, and Hyundai, but Hyundai specifically is up 45%, I mean, since 2020. And you're talking about escalating your plans.
Yes.
Accelerating your plans. I mean, that seems very ambitious to do so in this environment.
It is ambitious, but we are a very ambitious company. And then we are not just setting ambitious goals, so we are setting ambition actions across the entire portfolio of companies within the group. As mentioned earlier, it's not only a matter of the OEM, but also we are producing the steel. We made strides in terms of developing the autonomous driving technology like Motional. We made a lot of progress on robotics. Everybody's been talking about what we presented in January this year at CES, and now everybody's seeing the added value that Boston Dynamics has in our operations today, but then much more in the future, not to mention about the fact that now Genesis, I mean, it's gone way beyond our expectations and became number 7 in the US market, overtaking Porsche, Jaguar, Land Rover, you know, and others, which is amazing to see in a good way, in a good path, and even before we've deployed the entire portfolio of products and technologies that are about to come.
And we will get to the robotics and also the beautiful vehicle behind us right in a little bit. You mentioned overtaking those luxury brands. Hyundai itself has overtaken quite a few brands as well and companies. The group itself is right behind Toyota, GM, and Ford. How much more can Hyundai grow this decade, and can it get into that number 3 slot in the US like it is globally?
Well, the interesting thing is that sometimes when you set targets, they're very difficult to achieve. Believe it or not, we didn't set these targets like that. We focus on delivering the best safe products to the customer with the highest possible quality, with the best features. And then we work as we speak on all the different dimensions, and we end up achieving unbelievable goals. So we are very proud, of course, to not only have achieved a number 3 global position and as a group a number 2 in profits, but to have maintained that position already for 2 years. I remember when COVID came, we made a lot of progress in terms of sales and profits and then ranking, and a lot of people said, well, this is because of COVID. Well, COVID is really past, and we've continued with our journey. And then definitely, I think the way our leader, the executive chair, Chang, sets the company, the vision, and the way we translate all that into a very concrete plans, and the way we see those plans translated into results is very encouraging and help us do even more and be more confident. And then definitely, as I mentioned in many forums, my top 3 priorities are USA, and USA is helping us to really make good progress, not only in the most important market and the most competitive market in the world, but also elsewhere.
Do you feel you can get to the podium then in sales for the US by the end of this decade?
Let me tell you that definitely we don't have such a plan. So I think we are happy where we are, but we have more potential. As mentioned, we are looking at profit pools, and we are looking at market trends, and we have made announcements that would help us get into segments where we have not competed so far, and where we think we have a good credibility and recognition in the market, like the body on frame, right? So we presented our body on frame concept, Bolt, in New York, and then stay tuned for what may be presented in the future. And then, you know, these are breakthrough blue ocean opportunities, but in addition, we're working on organic opportunities as well. But if I can summarize what we are proud the most is basically the safety capabilities of our cars. So being number 1 as a mainstream brand with Hyundai Consumer Report safety ranking, and then with Genesis, I think we're number 2, being the number 1 as a group in Top Safety Pick Plus. You know, that's what matters to the consumer, and then change for good the positioning of the brand, and then applying Sonnim, and then trying to support all customers, both the past customers, the current ones, and the future. But at the same time, as we invest, as we localize, we have more engineering capabilities, more technical capabilities in this market compared to global, so depend less on Korean management and Korean R&D and Korean resources, and focus more and more here. And the same strategy we are applying in other markets, like India would be a great example, where we've gone public, where again we are localizing, we are becoming stronger, we're bringing new products, new technology, we're hiring engineers, etc. And well, so far so good, so we plan to stay the course.
And the Meta plant in Georgia is a huge part of Hyundai's growth in the US. You guys made the decision to invest here before the tariffs were in effect. I was down there at the groundbreaking a few years back. It's supposed to be at 500,000 vehicles by 2028.
Yes.
Where are we currently with that plant, and where do you hope it to kind of be in 2028 and 2030?
Well, let me tell you that the Meta plant, to me, it was probably the biggest milestone of our company in the last 40 years, right? Because it came at a critical moment where people thought the future is going to be 100% electric. But we saw very soon in the process that the future was not going to be just 100% electric. So we were able to very quickly adjust the plan and introduce a new line with new investment to be able to produce hybrids that today they are already being produced as we speak, which is fantastic. So, and I remember very well that the first step, the original plan was to produce 300,000 cars a year, and then the day of the grand opening, I announced that we would go into extra capacity of 200,000. Well, I can tell you today that we are looking into ways to increase that even further. Really? Yeah, because we want to ensure that we are able to produce in the US minimum 80% of what we sell in the US, if not more, yes. Right? For that purpose, we need to add more capacity. We are very happy with the evolution, so we are producing now battery EV vehicles and also hybrids, and we are ramping up as fast as we can. But we don't have a kind of a top milestone in terms of I want to achieve this volume by this. Honestly, our number one indicator is to ensure the quality is good, and then this is the case to the point that we move from having soft demand on EVs to increasing the demand and to dealers asking us, hey, we want more Ioniq 5s in particular, but also we have made announcements that we're working with Waymo to produce robotaxis in our Ioniq 5 vehicle in the Meta plant in the United States, and I think we are the only ones who are doing that in the country. So this is adding more business, this is adding more profitability, more amortization to our investment. So we are well on our way in the sense that, as I said, 300, 500, and we are working already on phase 3 in that plant.
How much more can you increase it without needing a brand new plant?
I think because we got a really nice, I would say big plot of land with more than 3,000 acres, yes. I think we could stretch that to probably maybe 700,000 to 800,000 if needed, right? Don't forget that we not only have the plant, but we have also suppliers around, like Mobis and then Globis, and Hyundai materials, and then we have construction and engineering, etc. But I think roughly we could stretch to 700,000 to 800,000.
How quickly could you do that? And you're talking about in addition to the 26 billion that you've already announced, correct?
Yes. Well, this would be part of the 26 billion.
Oh, it would be 20.
Part of the 26 billion, yes. So we want to have all this up and running by 2028. That is
even the additional capacity?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. And then by that time, how many vehicles will be produced in there?
Well, if we can get the full potential, it could be 700,000 to 800,000.
Oh no! Well, how many models? How many actual models?
Okay. How many vehicles? Yeah. So it could be probably 6, 7 vehicles with different technologies, because we have announced we want to introduce not only hybrids but also extended range EVs.
Yes.
So EVs, hybrids, and extended range EVs.
And before, when we talked, it was kind of right when the EV euphoria bubble was popping a bit, and you told me that you guys were going to look at hybrids in that
yes.
plant. How are you looking at the EV market right now? I know part of the plan was to sell 3.33 million EVs a year by 2030 on electrified vehicles of the 5.55 million. How are you looking at EVs now compared to, a few years back?
Well, basically, we continue to see EV as a very important market. Today, we account for roughly 1/3 of total vehicles electrified, and then with solid growth on battery EV. Now we're booming on hybrid, more than 70% growth, for example, last quarter here in the US, but BEV continue to grow for different reasons. I think more and more products available in the market. In our case, not only the Ioniq 5, but also the Ioniq 9. Now we're going to have the Neoloom, the GV90, but we have other products as well. The products are better and better, so the ranges are increasing. The technology is more solid, the infrastructure is getting better, so things are still having a lot of opportunity to organically grow through all these levers. The public are realizing that these vehicles are really extraordinarily good for certain applications, and then in areas that we were not expecting, we see sales picking up and consumers willing to try and then grow. So again, for us, surprise was actually this market that is for us growing more than we thought it would grow. But we know by now that the market is not going to be 100% electric, and that's why we are working on bringing additional technologies, as mentioned, the hybrid, but also EREV, etc. So coming back to this car, because we are right behind the GV90. Well, we had a lot of internal discussions, and we've seen that some companies have dropped off these type of vehicles from their portfolio. In our case, we are trying to bring the greatest concept of Sonnim, so the honor guest, not only when you visit our dealerships, where we have invested a lot. We have already more than 200 exclusive ones worldwide and more than 85 exclusive Genesis facilities in the United States, which are state-of-the-art, but also when you get into this vehicle. When you get into this vehicle, you clearly feel it is different. Yeah. It's different to any other vehicle. The configuration of the seats, the materials, the different features, the devices that the vehicle has. And then once you will have the opportunity to try, you will see the technology that we've brought into this vehicle that allows to have extremely smooth ride and handling, and then which is driven by the new platform EMP that we call this, which gives you all this flexibility, which basically you can do whatever you like in the space, right? So bottom line, we are confident on the growth of BEV, and we see Europe is booming, getting closer and closer to the level that we see in China, and continues to be the biggest growth, and here in the US continue to grow. So we plan to maintain our plans to launch BEV vehicles for both Hyundai and Genesis, and we'll see how it goes. But number one thing that we've learned through this period is that one of our strengths, which is flexibility, is going to be applied all the way through the process. And we cannot just say, hey, we stick to just this number, and then because we said we would do that. We are constantly adjusting, but the direction fundamentally didn't change, so we stayed the course.
And you mentioned this is obviously a BEV, and it's a very beautiful vehicle. Looks like it could fit maybe an E-Rev in there. You guys are supposed to have E-Revs by 2027. Will this be available in different technologies like you've done?
It would be a candidate, so definitely the positioning of our brand is to be able to offer the customers what they want. We don't want the customers to be locked into one option. We want to be open and offer different configurations, and EREV for this type of vehicle could be perfectly recognized by the consumer. It would bring additional range and then a very, very good performance as well, so why not? We have not announced yet, so now we are launching this one, but why not?
Why not? And Hyundai and Genesis have grown white space a lot. New vehicles, new entries. You're running out of entries a little bit here, depending on the size of the vehicle. You mentioned the body-on-frame vehicle for the US, a very important segment. Hyundai does not currently have a full-size pickup, body-on-frame pickup. Is that something that you're looking at for the U.S. market for the pickup buyers?
Well, we are not making now an announcement on the product plan that we have.
You can if you like.
But we could in due time, step by step. But we announced in New York this year that we're going to enter into the body on frame. Once you enter into the body on frame, it's a new unexplored territory for us. And normally it's not just one vehicle, so you have the opportunity to scale and to take advantage of your investment, to have different options available in the market, and then more to follow. The good thing for us is that we've made a good progress without entering into new segments, just bringing new technology, and then, okay, this is a new segment, but as you said, both in Genesis and in Hyundai, we have blue ocean meaning segments that are going to be new, that are going to bring additional sales and profit opportunities for the company. If we combine with also more technologies available, like the example that you mentioned on ERV and others.
Can you build body and frame at the Meta plant?
Well, basically we could, we could, but if we realize the current plant, probably we wouldn't be able to do that, right? So from an industrial point of view, it's better to have dedicated plants. So this is something that we are studying as we speak.
Would that be another plant then in the U.S., given body and frame market's so large here?
We are always assessing the opportunities that we have in the market, and we always have to make decisions of that sort, right? So for the time being, we have not, but you'll be the first to know.
Please. With the U.S. market, it's been through a lot since you've joined the company. I mean, in 2019, we went through COVID, a chip shortage, supply chain shortages, a war. I'm missing a couple, but I mean, how are you looking at U.S. tariffs right now, and also the USMCA trade negotiations? What is the ideal outcome for Hyundai with both of those trades?
Well, I'm glad I'm not a politician, right? So, and then my job is to take all the elements that are available to do the business and make the most out of it, right? So I'm not going to enter in judging the situation, but what I will tell you is that for us, tariffs are helping accelerate our localization plan. That's very, very simple. The good thing is that we had already started before tariffs were announced. So in a way, it's helping us to accelerate. And I always look at the business in a very simple way. So I look at the revenue and the cost, the two different things. So if I got tariffs on vehicles that are bringing from Korea mainly, what I have to do is to work on cost optimization across the board. Through localization of suppliers, through increased production here. And at the same time, you may have seen in the market, we have determined that being competitive is a key element for the American consumer. So affordability is something that we fully understand and we apply. So meaning, while we navigate the uncertainty in the market and the increase in the raw material costs and the increase in overall prices and the interest rates, etc., we try to be competitive in the market and work as we speak on cost optimization, and the cost optimization which brings also opportunities to improve quality, to commonize through utilization of the same platform with different vehicles, to rationalize, right? So how can you do better all the time? So we don't want to bring additional burden to the consumer. We want to do better. And then I think all these factors that you mentioned are helping our company to get stronger and more resilient, which is what the consumers appreciate, what the shareholders want to see.
And USMCA specifically, I mean, what would your ideal situation be for?
Again, you know, every country, we are having operations in the entire world, right? And then every country is different. And then we came up with the conclusion, not only for the United States, but also in the other markets, that that localization is the way to go. And that's why, in addition to the 125 trillion Korean won investment we have announced in Korea, we have announced the $26 billion investment in the US. And in total, if you've seen our CEO Investor Day, yes, we have announced more than 100 plus products launches in the next few years, which means we have to localize more. That's what it means. So if the negotiations end up in a certain way, we are going to be taking the actions to make the most out of it. So we cannot, I would say, bet on this or that. I mean, the government is doing the job, we're doing ours.
You're doing it. Speaking of your job, we've talked about mobility before. We've talked about Hyundai being a mobility company. Last night during the unveil of the GV90, you mentioned a physical AI enterprise, you and executive chairman. What exactly does that mean? You mentioned the robotics out of CES, but I mean, what is Hyundai pivoting to, or how is the company growing when it comes to that physical AI enterprise?
Well, first and foremost, you know, AI is not something for the future, it's happening today. And then as we see robots as an element to help the current workers that we have in the plants to be more effective and get at the end of the day better productivity, better quality and lower cost, the physical AI is the same thing. So precisely through having the opportunity to become a foundry for robotaxis and then apply the latest and greatest technology with data centers with which the robotaxis need. Also working through our AVP division to bring the latest and greatest technology when it comes to autonomous driving, which also require all the data and the data centers and AI, plus the robotics. So you have already 3 areas where it's not only something to be looking nice, so it's something that you need to be competitive, and then you need to be pioneering, and you need to be developing and to be ahead of the game. Otherwise, you get behind very quickly, right? So the vertical integration of our group and the capability to partner with different players like Waymo, like Amazon, like Nvidia, and others is bringing a boost to the speed which the company can utilize to realize our plan. So it's an additional layer of opportunity. So we're very focused, as the chairman mentioned and as I mentioned, on physical AI, and now we have to deliver.
Now you've got a lot on your plate already. Does physical AI fall to you too? I mean, humanoid robots in a plan, or is that kind of separate, big part of the bigger Hyundai group?
So Hyundai Motor Group is a very large group, and we have very good executives specialized in different areas. HMC is the most important entity within the group, and is the one that funds all the other investments, yes, and is also the main customer. So because the robots are not just to walk around, so the robots have a mission, and then that's the strength of our group, that we capitalize on the capabilities of the different entities of the group for the benefit of the other different entities. So robotaxis benefit Hyundai Motor Company. So for example, Motional, which is our own autonomous driving technology, benefits HMC. The robotics benefit HMC. So we are investor, we are customer, we're fully involved with a lot of very capable people who are very smart, trying to run on their own lanes.
And you mentioned the customer. Who is the customer for the GV90 behind us? Last night when you unveiled it, you mentioned this being the beginning of a new beginning, essentially, exactly, for the Genesis brand. What does that mean in terms of customer, pricing, and just here on out for Genesis?
So I think we've launched Genesis as a company or as a brand that in the very initial phase was just bringing Hyundai customers into Genesis. They saw the car that was at the beginning just one model, say, wow, this is different. It is a very nice design, features are very good. So is it really a Hyundai? And everybody realized very quickly that this is not a Hyundai Plus. This is a complete different vehicle, complete different technology, elevated in technology, elevated experience. And then we did the homework to separate the networks, etc. And I think we've come a long way to achieve 22 months of consecutive records, and then get from 2.4% market share back in 2015 to more than 4.2%, number 7 in the industry, etc. But we think we can do more. We've achieved that basically competing in a relatively limited number of segments, and then ultimately you want to bring the ultimate experience that we think we can bring to the customer. You can get to the highest level of luxury. And one of the things that we've found analyzing our data is that out of the luxury potential buyers, what we call the super SUV with the greatest and latest technology, materials, etc., is something very appealing. More than 25% of those customers tell us, wow, we would be thrilled, we would like to try. I think we're going to be able to attract not only current customers from GV70, GV80, etc., but also we're going to be able to conquest customers who are used to other brands and are going to realize they can get access to more at a competitive price. We don't aim at being kind of overly competitive. We don't aim at being a premium. We want to offer the customer the right product, the right features at the right level of price, and especially in a vehicle like this, you're talking about payments, right? So most people pay with lease. So those are our objectives. And then basically a lot of people ask us, so what does it mean, SONIM? And then I think this vehicle answers that question. So NIM is not anymore just how we treat the customers ourselves as people and in the facilities, but how we treat them when you get into this car. It goes without saying. You just need to get in and then sit and experience, and you say, okay, this is different, this is different. So as mentioned, we think that this is a very new stage into the brand, a new milestone. Is a new genesis, which I think is going to elevate the brand and is going to help us get all our brand metrics to a much higher level and continue to grow organically. Not to mention that we want to bring also new technologies in the premium segment, like hybrid. To me, this is also a very big element that we'll talk about in due time.
Great. Appreciate all the time, Jose, and might as well get in this vehicle too. So thank you. All right.
Thank you, Michael. Right. It's been great.
All right.